Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And with this one, we will be covering all of the healers in Dragonflight and ranking them on their competitive viability in PvP, mostly through the lens of ranked solo queue, the most exciting new feature of the expansion, which I'm imagining a lot of you are very eager to get your hands on. I have expansive, numerous hundreds, maybe even close to thousands of games played on the beta now, spanning a lot of classes. I've been studying and watching and observing a lot of other players and their points of views and their opinions going into this to try and construct a list, which is more or less a prediction given the information that we currently have right now in the Dragonflight beta. And if you're a regular to this channel, you know that I do updates, patch changes that come through to the game here on the channel as well. So if you want to stay up to date with those changes, I will be updating these lists along with them. If there are any changes that completely shift things from meta to not meta or completely obliterate them, we've seen massive nerfs and buffs. So hitting the subscribe button is a great way to make sure that you're always ahead of the competition. So let's just get started with the healers here. We've got Disciplined Priest. The first major thing to take into consideration with ranked solo queue is that games are very fast. You are likely not going to lose as a healer in ranked solo queue because of your mana. You will more than likely want to opt out of talents that have to do with mana regeneration for more damage or more recovery because it is intense with the dampening ramping up as fast as it is and the damage output alongside of that. And more likely the target's going to die. You're still going to have some mana, some juice left in the tank with the way that it is at the moment. So while mana has stereotypically been a problem for Discipline Priest, I don't think it's going to be as much of a problem. The main sticking point for Discipline that's holding it back at the moment for me is its mobility. It is the least mobile healer. Even over Holy Priest, it is the least mobile healer. You got some new talents that allow Fade to remove snares, which is going to be really important for you to escape, but you're likely going to notice if you played in Shadowlands not having Door Shadows, not having Soul Shape to move around the map. So you need to be an expert with your positioning. And the thing is you also don't really do too great with the DPS specs that are excelling at the moment. Warlocks, Demon Hunters, Death Knights. These are not typically what you're, wanting to see on the opposing team, and you don't really synergize very well with them either. And unfortunately, the classes that you do, the rogues, the hunters, and the mages, they're not performing as well. So you're more than likely going to be getting a lot of difficult lobbies with these guys just running you down and not having too great of a time. I think that it does a ton of damage. It's probably the highest overall damage output of any healer you can play in a match, especially if you're running the way that the Atonement builds are with it. It's got a lot of powerful cooldowns. Some of them are limited, like Powered Barrier, targets need to stay inside of them. So healers that have defensive cooldowns that require your DPS to be stationary when you're in ranked solo queue. The DPS that play in ranked solo queue are like the children in the ballroom at the mall. Like, they are all over the place. They're doing some weird things in the corner, and they're not going to stay in your barrier. That's just the main thing you need to be aware of. They're not going to stay in your barrier. So you might get frustrated by this a bit because of that. So I'm giving it a little bit of a lower ranking. I think that its damage output is definitely keeping it like at a competitive point where you could climb with it, but I don't think it's going to be like over excelling some of the other healers that are currently available. Now, Preservation Evoker, this next one, man, this spec is fun. It's good. It just feels good, man. It just feels, I have literally not seen a single person, and I've played it a lot myself, get on a Preservation Evoker and not be happy with their experience. And its performance is phenomenal. You have insane mobility, tons of like crowd control, immunity, avoidance. You have massive upfront burst with Fire Breath and Tip the Scales. You can reposition allies, reposition enemies while navigating around the map. You have good, consistent healing through your echoes and through your heal over time effects that you can apply to your targets. You have nice emergency heals with Verdant Embrace. That's going to be your main heal that you recover. You've got lots of cooldowns, like Emerald Communion is like Tranquility Bubble for Druids for Evoker here. You got things like Time Dilation, which is basically a 1-minute cooldown ice block you can put on your teammates. It's very rare that I've seen somebody die through Time Dilation. And then you have a raid-wide cooldown called Rewind, which is like Revival that just rewinds all the damage that's happened in the last couple of seconds. Like, oh my God, it's just chef's kiss at the moment. I'm honestly just a little bit sad that they removed the wall cooldown at the moment because there's some bugs going on with it. They said they're going to be bringing it back in the future. Hopefully that's sooner than later. But like, this thing is like impossible not to put up at the top. Like I just like they did a great job with the healing specialization of the of this class. Like it's gonna feel like a completely different experience. It's really powerful, feels really awesome. Lots of cool and unique things that you can do that you can't do in any other class. Like yeah, it's that simple. It's that simple. It's going up in the S tier. Holy Paladin, honestly, it has not stood off the page to me. You still have some mana problems as you did in Shadowlands, although it's not, again, in Solo Shuffle, probably not going to be a big deal. But I haven't seen Paladin popping off. I think it's probably still going to be a bit of a struggle. Now, some of the strengths that you do bring is you have like powerful, just complete stops on damage output. You have things like the Ultimate Sacrifice that completely negates damage, Divine Shield, Blessing of Protection, right? You have these hard stops on burst. So enemies in Solo Shuffle, when they're uncoordinated, they're probably going to all in. They're probably going to just, they're all their cooldowns down to the 5 seconds. So if you're a Holy Paladin, I get a lot of value when you do that. I can just press bop and all your melee attacks are gone, or I press sack, all your cooldowns are gone, and I can suck them up like that. And it's probably going to be good because of that. You still have high output with Avenging Wrath. I haven't seen anything like surprisingly new with this. I feel like they're kind of trolling you Paladins a little bit with so much emphasis on consecration, especially on red, but it's even on holy. A lot of talents focus around like this kind of like padded, slow AoE healing that's just like not really good in small group combat at the moment, so I think that holds it back. It's probably middle of the pack. You're going to do less damage than Disciplined Priest. Do I want to put it there? I want to probably somewhere here to there. It's pretty close, but definitely not up in these leagues based on my observations so far. Now, Holy Priest, the main advantages you have as Holy Priest as opposed to Disciplined Priest is access to honor talents like being able to fly up into the air with Divine Ascension, being able to escape melee attackers. So if you get a lobby with like Death Knights and Warriors and Demon Hunters and Lions and Tigers and Bears, oh my, you will have tools to escape them that Discipline doesn't. At the moment, you don't really do as much overall damage, but you can bring some nice burst damage with Holy Fire. That I've noticed your overall damage will be lower, but it's more front loaded. The way that you deal damage, it's probably close. The hardest decision for me was whether or not Disc or Holy was better than the other. It's really tough. You have better emergency healing. Your cooldowns with Guardian Spirit are more guaranteed. Like they don't have to worry about them running out of the Guardian Spirit. They're just going to get that, and if they die, it'll resurrect them for a moment, and then give you a second chance to kind of bounce them back into the fight. You do generally struggle, and you're not really synergized a lot with the best classes. Probably the same reason that Paladin is lower on this list is because it's not usually the best Warlock healer, not usually the best Death Knight or Demon Hunter healer at the moment, similar to Shadowlands. So it's really hard for me. I kind of want to put Holy here, but these two are very close. Bring a little bit of disadvantages and advantages against each other. More burst damage, Divine Ascension really good. Not going to be able to escape as easily, but more consistent damage if you're left open. So they're very close in terms of competitive viability. Mistweaver Monk, I'm so hard sold on this one being S tier because I've got a lot of people telling me that it feels really good. It's got a lot of output, but I do not see the offensive contribution that you bring, okay? So Preservation Evoker runs in and fire breaths people. It breathes fire on them. It does a lot of damage. You can talent to have it purge and clean everything off the enemy team. The one time that I saw someone play a Mistweaver Monk and they tried the Fist Weaving build, it seems like it's more designed for PvE and hitting mobs and just AoEing with Phalanx Stomp and Spinning Crane Kick. And it's not so much going to be good in small group combat, and you're just going to expose your positioning. Now, you did get Spearhand Strike back. I've noticed that. Being able to like roll up and interrupt a mage that's trying to sheep you or a fear or something feels really good and satisfying, and its output is remarkably high. So I do think that it is this maybe the strongest healer overall in terms of output. But because I don't think that it's bringing that fist weaving element or offensive capabilities, the same thing that's been lacking carrying forward from Shadowlands, that I don't think that I can put it on S. I can't. While these are both doing remarkable amounts of healing, you have basically the same amount of mobility. This one hits people really hard occasionally. This one almost never going to be hitting anybody. Maybe there's some builds that develop. Again, Mistweaver is like, I want to say probably one of the least played specs as far as I know, because like I never see a lot of streamers playing it, and it's not a very popular spec overall. So maybe there's a build that's hidden, you know, a diamond in the rough. And again, we'll update this list. It's ongoing. This isn't like a permanent locked in stone. It's just to try and give you an idea of where specs are, so how they might fit for you, get an idea of what's going on with the meta overall, and how that could possibly change in the future. So you can get the juices flowing, so you're ready for the competition before it starts, and you're going to be ahead of people, and you can start climbing the ladder faster. Now, Resto Druid, okay, this is the one where I almost want to shift the whole list. Resto Druid, this is a really versatile healer. It's going to be flexible and fit with pretty much everything. Brings really important things to the solo shuffle environment, like Tranquility, Divine Shield to protect yourself, Iron Bark to assist allies. If you're splitting your hots with Life Bloom being as powerful as it is, you're going to be good at multi-target healing and single-target healing. You do work well with Warlocks. You work well with melee DPS. You can play with anything in the game. So you're really versatile and flexible. Offensively, you do bring some damage. You will contribute things like Instant Moonfire. That will be buffed up through your Druid talent points as you heal targets. So you get these big 40k Moonfires every once in a while, which is super satisfying to do. Haven't seen a lot of people running the Balance Affinity, and the few that I do, it doesn't really look too great. It's just a lot of global cooldowns to use it, and you lose out on a lot of defense not going down the left side of the Druid tree. So haven't really seen a lot of Druids being able to make it work in that regard. But because of its flexibility, its versatility, its damage output, I want to say that it's probably competing, at least close to competing with Mistweaver because of that. Whereas Mistweaver is a much more passive healer, not going to be contributing as much in terms of damage. But Paralyze, again, and Paralyze can break on CC. Cyclone can be game breaking. Cyclone target low, completely dismantle the enemy team. Crowd control wise, I feel like we're probably leaning into Resto Druid as well a little bit. So competitive, Mistweaver's going to be higher output overall, I think. But the crowd control utility element of Druid is really good. Now, Resto Shaman, this one was a rough ride when I've tried it, and I've seen a lot of main shamans that are talking about, like, you know what, maybe it's time to give up shaman, retire the mantle, just become a preservation invoker. I can't blame them, because preservation invoker is just so amazing and awesome and fantastic. I can't really blame them, but shaman is also kind of a struggle bus, even though you can actually get double Earthen Wall Totem. So you can put an Earthen Wall Totem and play Totemic Recall and reset it and get 2 Earthen Wall Totems for 1, twice the value. You can run this really heavy Riptide build that's proccing Ascendances and boosting your healing, but you feel really dependent on Healing Tide for your recovery, and really dependent on Ascendance. And the thing about those is that Healing Tide can be killed off. A lot of people have add-ons for it, and they'll kill it. Ascendance is positioning based, and you be next to your teammates for that AoE splash healing, so you got to compromise your positioning. Very dangerous. You are very squishy. People will just attack you a lot of the times, is what I've noticed, is as the meta has evolved, they'll just start running you down, train the blue. You bring a lot of burst damage, honestly, with Stormkeeper. You can lob out some really big lightning bolts and lava bursts. You're probably going to want to focus on being an offensive healer than a defensive one. So kind of like just using all your cooldowns to keep your teammates alive and keeping them aggressive and rush down your opponents, which is, I mean, honestly, I think should be the archetype for Shaman Healer, with things like Purge and running through and Disruption and being aggressive. I like that, but you're a little bit more fragile. Your output is a bit of a rough ride compared to like pretty much every healer. Maybe it's comparative to Holy Paladin. That's why I kind of want to do this. I feel like the offensive strengths of Shaman counterbalance with like the lack of offensive balance with Paladin, but sacrifice immunity cooldowns, balance out with the weakness of the Shaman's defensives. Because again, keeping somebody in Earthen Wall Totem, I kind of doubt it. They're going to go run out of it. And you can even move the Earthen Wall Totem, but the problem with the move totem is that it also moves your healing streams and your healing tide, so it puts them in the middle of the map when you move it. And people just keep running out of them. Spirit Link, like I've seen Shamans miss Spirit Links when they have their teammates coordinated in voice comms, let alone when like, oh, he ported, whoopsie, Link's down here. Oh, guess we're not getting the link. Like, things can fall apart pretty rapidly with Resto Shaman, so I feel like bringing it a little bit lower on the list at the moment in terms of competitive viability makes sense. I think bringing Paladin down here also is likely, because I feel like I haven't seen enough of it, and if there haven't been a lot of it, it's probably because it's not too fantastic. Probably in a similar spot to where it was in Shadowlands. But this is kind of my initial assessment, initial thoughts for the specializations. Get your juices flowing, thinking about what you want to make as a decision moving forward into Dragonflight. If you're really interested in the competitive viability of it, or you're worried about picking something that might not succeed, do note that in solo shuffle, let's say you pick Resto Shaman and it ends up being the worst healer, you're only competing against other Resto Shamans for your rewards in ranked solo queue. Your end of season title will be based off of the performance of your spec. So you can try and be the underdog. You can go for that, try and make it work, and you'll be rewarded if you're the best of the underdogs. Just because you ain't this guy up here, you ain't the Chad Voker. You're still going to get a title out of it if you're the best resto shaman, even if it's not the most competitively viable. And I know for myself personally, I'm going to be trying to play basically every spec, trying to get up there on every spec just as a personal challenge. So I'm looking forward to it, but definitely a little bit of imbalance for the healers has started to develop over time that I've noticed on the beta. Again, things are subject to change. This is a beta tier list moving forward to try and predict, get our thoughts going on with it. And if there are changes, I will update them here for you. You will not miss the beat. And I've been very consistent with that over time, I'm sure, to those of you that are regulars to the channel. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.